So I was sitting around and I was thinking, we always like to look at national teams and see what the best players from each country are in the NHL. But then I realized that what we never look at is provincial teams. And if we took the best players from each Canadian province, what sort of teams would we be able to make, and which province would have the strongest teams? So I went out and I did this for each province, and a bit of fudging for the Maritimes, and I've taken the best player from each position in terms of points. I went on NHL.com, sorted by each province, and listed them by points. The top 4 players for each of the forward positions by points, took them, put them onto a team. Top 6 defensemen by points, took them, put them onto a team. And the top 2 goaltenders by wins or save percentage. I kind of muddled around with that to try and make sure each team got the best possible goalie. So without further ado, here are the 2018-2019 all-province teams. So the first team I want to look at is Team Alberta. Now the first thing I noticed about Team Alberta is that it has a very distinct difference on forward between its top 6 and bottom 6. You got a real strong top line of Taylor Hall, Braden Point, and Brendan Gallagher. That could be a first line on any team in the league, probably. You get a second line of Jake DeBrusk, Brian Little, and William Nylander. Now, I know Nylander is Swedish, but technically he was born in Calgary when his dad, Michael Nylander, played for the Flames in the 90s. And on NHL.com, he is listed as being Albertan and from Calgary. So for the purposes of giving the Albertan team a very strong right winger, I decided to let the Nylander thing slide and allow him to play for Alberta. So yeah, really strong top 6, a lot of goal scoring ability up there. And then we get to the third line of Tyler Ennis, Tyson Jost, and Ty Ratty. I mean, with the season Ennis has been having this year, that's a pretty good left winger to have. Jost is also a pretty good player. Ty Ratty, decent, he's tough, can bat some goals in too. He's a pretty solid addition to this forward group. And then the fourth line is Carter Rowney, Patrick Eaves, and Austin Wagner. This team, I've noticed, seems to go a lot of skill in the top half and then a lot of banging on the bottom half. You know, this is a nice mix. I could see this being an actual NHL team, funnily enough, at least in terms of the forward groups. On defense, the Alberta province team seems very strong. You got Jared Spurgeon and Josh Morrissey on the top pair. That's a lot of puck moving ability right there. 2 very good defenders. Then you get Mike Green and Colton Parayko. Again, 2 very good defenders, some good puck moving ability there. Parayko's big. He can bang around. And then you got a fourth pair of, again, big bruisers in Chris Russell and Johnny Boychuk. Seems like Alberta can only really produce 2 types of players in either very skilled puck movers or big bruising players to play against that you just can lay out the big hits. And then in net, they were a little weak. They have Carter Hart, who, I mean, he will be very good in the future, but for right now, he's not the best goalie in the league. And Aaron Dell, who's a solid backup for the San Jose Sharks. The second all-provincial team we're going to look at is British Columbia. Now, first off, I can just say, oh my god, these guys are amazing down the middle. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Sam Reinhart, Matt Barzal, and off of points this season, Ryan Johansson is their third-line center. That's just unbelievable center depth. Left wing, you got Evander Kane and Jamie Benn on the top 2 lines. That's absolutely killer the amount of scoring talent there. And then you run into a little bit of a problem with Milan Lucic and Jujhar Khaira. Edmonton's had a lot of problems on the wings. Their wingers just have not been able to score this year. And the fact that these 2 wingers were the 2 highest scoring left wingers behind Benn and Kane that BC could produce that's a major drop off. BC also only actually has 3 right wingers playing in the NHL in Brett Connolly, Jake Virtanen, and Troy Brouwer. Alex Kerfoot was actually their 5th highest scoring center, and I had to slot him in the right wing position just to fill it out. But yeah, this team is amazing at center. Pretty damn good for the first 2 left wingers, and then it drops off quite a bit. But all in all, the province of BC has produced some very good centers. On defense, we got Morgan Riley and Tyson Barrie on the top pair, 2 incredible puck-moving defensemen, very good players, both far and away the best defenders on their team. Then you have Shea Theodore, who's also up there with Riley and Barrie in the puck-moving defenseman category. Shea Weber, he's gotten older recently, getting older. Not as good as he used to be, but still a very good player. Same goes for Brent Seabrooks, falls in the same boat of Weber, not as good as he used to be, but still a very good player. And Troy Stetcher, the Vancouver Canuck, fills out the BC defense group. And in net, Geez, this is a very good duo in Martin Jones and Carey Price. This is probably the best goaltending duo that any of the provinces could provide. Next up is Manitoba. Manitoba has a center core of Jonathan Toews, Max Domi, Travis Zajac, and Cody Eakin. Not as good as BC that we just saw, but this could be a center group in the NHL. I mean, Toews first line center, Domi second line center, Zajac and Eakin running out the bottom six. I would take that as a center group on pretty much any team. Left wing, they're a little weak with Michael Furland, Matt Calvert, Jordan Martinuk, and Brendan Leipsic. Seems like a overload of third and fourth line wingers to fill out just their left side. On the right, you got Mark Stone, who is a fantastic winger. Ryan Reeves and Dale Weiss, both very good bottom six players. And then, like BC, Manitoba only had 3 right wingers in the NHL, so Nolan Patrick, the 5th highest scoring center, slots into that fourth line right wing role. And I mean, former second overall pick, I mean, some people think he should have gone first overall. He's a very good addition. On defense, we've got a very solid group of Duncan Keith, Ryan Pulak, Travis Sanheim, Travis Hamonic, Joel Edmondson, and Madison Bowie. Nothing too special here, but again, this would be a pretty solid NHL core 6. And Manitoba only has 1 goaltender, the Rhyme Minister of Defense, James Reimer. That's it in terms of goalies for Manitoba in the NHL, so if this was an actual tournament, they'd have to rely on him pretty heavily. And I mean, he hasn't been playing that good this season, but he did show a couple years ago in Toronto that he can be a very good goaltender. Now, unfortunately, none of the Maritime provinces have enough players to fill out an entire team. And even by combining PEI, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Labrador, I could only fill out this roster. Sitting at 8 forwards, 4D, and 2 goalies. Yet somehow they have more goalies than Manitoba. Maritime's team consists of Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon, which is probably the best 1-2 center punch out of any province group, and they're both from Nova Scotia. The other 2 full-time NHLers for the Maritimes on forward are Brad Marchand and Alex Killorn. It's really a shame that I couldn't fill out an entire roster from these provinces, because just looking at those 4, this would have been a very strong team if they just had some players to fill out the roster. And then we had 4 kind of injury replacement players who don't really get full time in the NHL. They've all played like around 10-ish games this season in Ross Johnston, Brad Malone, Josh Curry, and Clark Bishop. On defense, you get a solid but older top pairing of Adam McQuaid and Andrew McDonald, and then there's only enough players for a second pair, so you get Ryan Graves and Philip Myers. And then in net, there's Jake Allen and Calvin Pickard, both who have been struggling this season, but I mean, they've both had very good years in the past. And then I got to Ontario, and I think I found out the reason why no one's done this, really. The Ontario team is absolutely stacked. Down the middle, you have Connor McDavid, Steven Stamkos, John Tavares, and Mark Scheifele. That could be Team Canada's center lineup. On left wing, you start off with Mike Hoffman and Jeff Skinner, and then there's a drop-off to Tyler Bertuzzi and Zach Hyman. So this team doesn't have 4 first lines, thank God, but that's about as close as we get to a drop-off. Right wing, you have Mitch Marner, Josh Bailey, Justin Williams, and Travis Konechny. Again, just an incredible amount of talent up front. And then on defense, things get real ridiculous, because you have Brent Burns, Mark Giordano, Drew Doughty, Ryan Ellis, Darnell Nurse, and Alex Pietrangelo, which, again, could possibly be a Team Canada defense. In net, surprisingly, this province is kind of weaker. You have Matt Murray and Jordan Binnington. I mean, depending on what you want to classify Binnington's season as this year, and if he can keep that going in the future, this could possibly be the best goaltending combo, but I mean, compared to BC, it's probably not that good. So to fix the Ontario issue, I decided to split it up into 2 teams. I decided to make a just GTA team and then an Ontario team without the GTA. So first off, I'm going to show you the just GTA team, which at center is pretty much the exact same as the Ontario team, with the exception that the 4th line center is now Sean Monahan instead of Mark Scheifele, who's arguably better, so not that much of a change down the middle. On left wing, you still have Jeff Skinner. Zach Hyman is now the number 2 left winger, and you have Evan Rodriguez and Brandon Tanev coming up, so you can see that with just the GTA team, especially on the wings, things start to get a little bit weaker and a little bit more comparable to the teams at the other provinces. On right wing, you still have Mitch Marner. Then you have Riley Smith, Tom Wilson, and Wayne Simmons. So this team gets a lot tougher on the wings when it becomes a just Toronto team as opposed to a only Ontario team. On defense, the only face from the Ontario team, interestingly enough, a lot of forwards stayed around, but not very many defensemen. Mark Giordano is the only defenseman from the All-Ontario team who makes it to the GTA team. With them, you have Dougie Hamilton, Vince Dunn, PK Subban, Adam Pelech, and Chris Tanev. So, again, a very good defensive group. I mean, this could possibly be a defensive group on an actual NHL team, and it's nowhere near as good as the All-Ontario team defense group, but still an incredibly talented group considering that they all came from the same city. And in net, you have Jordan Binnington and Malcolm Subban. Again, how you take this completely depends on what you want to say Binnington's season that he's having this year is. Subban is a questionable backup at most. This is a very strong group, but once you get to net, it seems to fall quite off. And the Ontario team without Toronto, down the middle, you have Mark Scheifele, Claude Giroux, Ryan O'Reilly, and Matt Duchene. So very good still, despite the fact that most of these guys didn't make the original Ontario team. Again, you get 4 basically first-line centers. On left wing, you get Mike Hoffman, Tyler Bertuzzi, Nick Ritchie, and Paul Byron. And at right wing, you get Josh Bailey, Justin Williams, Travis Konechny, and Josh Anderson. Again, I find it really interesting how the talent on the wings, specifically for Ontario, seems to be a lot lower than what there is in the middle of the ice. Just seems like Ontario has a lot more skill down the middle than it does on the wings. On defense, interestingly, it's basically the exact same team as from the All-Ontario team, with the exception of Mark Giordano is out for being from Toronto, so Jake Muzzin slides in. And again, this is a crazy good defense group, especially considering that Jake Muzzin was the add-on. And in net, we bring back Matt Murray, and instead of having Binnington behind him, he now has Mike Smith. And the addition of him or subtraction of having him instead of Binnington is completely up to you, depending on how you look at the season he's been having in Calgary this year. And now to Quebec. Quebec has Patrice Bergeron, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Jonathan Marchessault, and Philip Deneau down the middle. That is a pretty strong center group, and again, makes sense as 4 centers you would have on an NHL team, which is quite interesting. I like it when it works out like that. On left, you have Jonathan Huberdeau, Jonathan Drouin, David Perron, and Anthony Bolivier. And on right, you have Anthony Mantha, Alex Chason, Jason Pominville, and Matthew Joseph. All in all, a very strong forward group. They seem to be quite stronger on the left wing than on the right, and pretty good down the middle. On defense, you have a first pairing of Chris Letang and Thomas Chabot, which is just an incredible amount of puck-moving ability. That would cause a lot of nightmares if it was a real pairing. You get Michael Matheson and Samuel Girard, and Maxime Lajoie and David Savard. So a little bit of a drop-off after the first pairing, but still a pretty solid group. And in net, you have Marc-Andre Fleury and Louis Dominique. Dominique, again, depending on how you look at Tampa, may be the best backup in the NHL this season. And Marc-Andre Fleury is just Marc-Andre Fleury. He is going to be one of the best goalies no matter what. And the last province I'm going to get to is Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan down the middle has Braden Shen, Ryan Getzlaff, Tyler Bozak, and Chandler Stevenson. On left wing, you have Patrick Marleau, Jaden Schwartz. Wow, there's a lot of St. Louis representation on this team, I've just realized. Zach Smith and Blake Como also are on the left. On the right wing, you get Jordan Eberle, Josh Archibald, Adam Cracknell, and Chris Kunitz. This forward group seems to be one of the older ones that I've made. This team in general really just has a lack of younger players on it, which I'm actually quite concerned about what's going on in Saskatchewan hockey-wise and why it doesn't seem like there's been any players recently who are really good that have come out of Saskatchewan. On defense, there's Damon Severson, Ryan Murray, Matt Dumba, Braden Coburn, Braden McNabb, and Derek Pouliot. That, again, could be a defensive group in the NHL, and a very good one at that. That's a solid group all around. Got some puck-moving ability, got some bangers. And in net, you have Devin Dubnyk, who's always very good for Minnesota, and reigning Stanley Cup champion Braden Holtby. So, you know he can stop a puck. And there you have it. Those are the best teams from each province. Comment down below which one you think will win in a tournament. Split Ontario in two, with Toronto and without Toronto for your own sanity, or else this becomes far too easy. One thing that I would like to see happen, I personally do not have NHL 19. If any of you out there have NHL 19 and would like to put these teams into the game, and have a tournament played out or simmed out with these teams to see who would win in the NHL 19 simulation. I think that would be a very cool idea and very interesting to see how it turns out. And yeah, there you have it. If you like this video and want to see more like it, make sure you leave a like down below so I know to make more stuff like this. And if you want to see more stuff like this, subscribe.